So Dave, you're back on the show much sooner than originally anticipated. But I would say based on popular demand, but based on my demand, I think that you made one of the most brilliant videos, and I told you this offline about the Tesla Q4 earnings, more so the call that was following the earnings and what Elon said and how you're seeing Tesla's future. So first of all, welcome. How are you, Dave?
Thank you, Tom. Yeah, it's good being on your channel, and I've appreciated having you on my channel just a week or two ago. Yeah.
How was the interview with Justin?
Yeah,
I
Justin
saw it.
was great. Yeah. It's been a pleasure getting to know him and what he's doing as well. Yeah.
Yeah, so Justin also told me I had a great time with you. So I was just speaking to another guy earlier, and I described you as a Tesla visionary. I think that's the best way to describe what you do. Do you think that's accurate?
Um, yeah, actually, I don't know. I kind of look at myself as just someone who holds a good amount of Tesla stock for a very long time. So what's interesting is I don't really trade in and out of too many stocks, I don't trade in and out of Tesla much. So almost all of my Tesla shares are from 2012, 2013. Yeah, I picked up some more along the years, but yeah, so, and then almost all my net worth, probably, over 95% of my net assets are in Tesla stock. And that's how it's been for a long time. And so it's not something I try to do, or it's not something like I'm thinking about Tesla, like to try to convince people at all. There's nothing really about that. I don't really, care too much, if people are in the stock or not. But it's more like this personal thing where I think about it a lot. It means a lot to me. And what means a lot also is just thinking about issues clearly, about trends and the future. And so to me, Tesla is like a test case. It's like a metaphor of how you think about the world and investing altogether. And so I look at it more like, it's a fun exercise to look at Tesla to try to figure it out, because you could use a lot of the same principles for other stocks, other fields, the future 10 or 20 years. We're still going to be talking about probably what happened, with Tesla 20 years back. Yeah.
Do you get at all annoyed by the lack of recognition that Tesla is getting, or maybe not getting, by the government, or is this something you just kind of get amused by? Like, I guess the question is
Yeah.
is this something that annoys you, or is this in the Gordon Johnson category where like just whatever? Like,
Yeah, to me, I'm not too annoyed. I think I've seen much like crazier stuff happening. Like in 2018, I remember going to CNN, going to Fox News, going to Drudge Report, going to every single big media news outlet in a course of 1 week. They all had hit pieces against Tesla and Elon Musk on the front page. Like it was just like blasted, like everywhere you went. That's more of a big deal, and that's where Tesla was struggling, and media was just trying to kill the company. I don't know. I don't think intentionally, but still, it's just so when Biden doesn't recognize Tesla, it's like I move on. It'll be fine.
I made a video earlier today.
Yeah, actually, I saw.
Video.
I saw that earlier.
I
Yeah,
think
definitely good thoughts.
he's doing harm he's ruining GM and Ford by doing that. I said in my video it's not healthy for them, but whatever.
Yeah.
It's not my problem.
Yeah.
I don't. Again, as you saw in my videos, I don't feel triggered by this topic.
Yeah.
In fact,
Do you remember back when the U.S. was attacking or invading Iraq, and then Saddam, and I think it was like his press coordinator or something, the day, like as the U.S. is coming in and taking over the country, he's like, everything is fine, we're gonna destroy these Americans, all this stuff. That kind of reminds me of the current auto industry right now.
Everything is fine. Everything is
fine. Exactly.
Well, they do have the hottest car in the market for sure. It's literally on fire. Which I don't know which one. One of them, maybe. I don't know. I mean, good for them.
Yeah.
But this video is not about them. I don't care about the legacy OEMs. It's kind of an anecdotal topic for me. But I do want to talk to you about something that I think is much more critical, much more important, and I think might be both an opportunity for people to understand where the world is headed, but also I'm more of an investor. Like you're more of a kind of. I look at you like at the Jules Verne's of YouTube. You see the future, and you kind of try and see, okay, where the world is going to be in 10 years. I think like a can we make money of this? I think we can.
Mhm.
So I think if people listen to your vision, there's actual money making opportunities for patient, long term investors here. Beyond, I think you made a brilliant video. I don't want to talk too much. So if you don't mind kind of sharing with my audience your theory about what Elon said and how he said it in his call, especially I'm talking about the AGI stuff and the
Yeah,
artificial. It's like I would really love to pick your
yeah,
brain on this, but I'll just give you the stage first. I don't want to ramble on
yeah.
about it.
Well, I'm curious, like, what stuck out for you the most? Kind of,
When
so I
you
can maybe
told me,
hone in on
okay,
that.
I felt like you were speaking to me, and of course you were not. But I was like, oh yeah, I'm having a conversation here with Dave. So when you said, hey, this is both an insane money making opportunity, which definitely talks to me,
Mm,
and also he's literally trying to fucking save you idiots from yourself, and because he knows that you're too dumb to do it yourself, and
yeah,
he's basically just it's like the perfect storm that he can make money of it, but he'll also save you from skynetting yourself into oblivion, which is
yeah,
exactly what you're about to do. And I
yeah,
found that fascinating, that point. But I'm getting ahead of myself because a lot of people,
yeah.
I'm sure, are not familiar with the thesis. But like, it just if you can walk me through and the audience through kind of the progression of how you felt uh, the timeline is for Tesla for the next like 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah. So, yeah, this is actually a very complex topic, but I think it's super fascinating. So, it goes back to probably like a good 5, 6, 7 years ago when Elon Musk started to warn people about AI. And this is when he started to do interviews. He's like, you got to be careful about artificial general intelligence, about, this point where the artificial intelligence is going to outpace human intelligence. And then after it reaches that point, it could be like 10 times, 100 times, a million times, a billion times, a trillion times smarter eventually. And then it's like, yeah, we're in big trouble, possibly. And so Elon started talking about it, and then he usually does something after he talks about it. So he started OpenAI with Sam Altman from Y Combinator and a few others. It was supposed to be like a nonprofit that kind of protects AGI, so it's democratized, it's not abused. But what happened is there was there was drama and disagreements. OpenAI, Elon broke apart, and Sam Altman decided to make it more for a for-profit company. And Elon kind of, did his own thing, and he got more involved with autopilot. And as he started to get more involved with autopilot, he kept on saying, "Hey, we're solving more and more of physical real world AI." Right. And every year that goes by, people are criticizing Elon because they're saying, "You're late, you're late, you're late." The car doesn't drive itself completely. But then Elon's saying, "Wait a minute, you don't understand. We're having to do so much more of AI than we realize." And then with AI Day, um, Tesla basically came out with this full stack kind of saying we're doing like the sensors, the hardware, we're doing the neural nets, the training, we're doing the computer, the chips, we're doing the testing, the validation, the software deployment. We have the cars, we have everything. We have the whole package. No one in the world is doing what we're doing with real world AI. And then they said, our next big thing is, or next thing we're working on is this AI robot. Right. And back then, everyone kind of discounted it, saying, ha, 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 like it's a person dancing in a costume. But I had done a bunch of interviews with this guy, James Dalma. I don't know if you've watched any of them, but
No.
I did 26 interviews with him, and he's an AI expert on my channel. And he predicted an AI robot over like about a year and a half ago, that Tesla
Wow.
could possibly make this robot for maybe $10,000 or so. And so all last year, I've been kind of tweeting about it, thinking about it. Like if Tesla could make a robot and port over their AI expertise, like this could be the next big thing, let's say 10 or 20 years down the road. And so when AI Day came out, I was like, oh my gosh, this is it. Like I knew it was happening. Like, but I didn't think it was going to happen this soon. I thought it was going to be more in 3 or 4 or 5 years, right? And so I was kind of shocked. And then this past Q4 earnings, so this is just like a week and a half ago or 2 weeks ago, Elon says this is going to be the most important product development in 2022, this AI robot. And this just messed up everyone. The analysts are freaking out, saying like Tesla's lost focus and the stock is plummeting. But I'm thinking, wait a minute, this is not what I'm expecting. I'm expecting this robot to be a priority 3, 4, 5, 6 years from now. Why is it moved up so much? And I started to realize, like, I think Elon is realizing that as they solve FSD, which he thinks is they're getting really close, that the next big frontier is going to be not just AI on 4 wheels, but it's going to be AI in a robot. And according to Elon, he's saying like the robot can be basically eventually do anything a human can do physically, right? And it could disrupt all of human labor eventually. And the skeptics and bears will say, oh my gosh, that's never going to happen in my lifetime, all this stuff. But what they're not catching is the fundamental problem of a robot is their brains. Typically, like a robot, people can make it generally, have it moves, and there's this thing called RoboCup, and you can check it out on YouTube. But it's this soccer competition that colleges join, where they have autonomous robots that try to play soccer. But it's humorous because the state-of-the-art robots, like their brains are so just like the state of neural nets and robots is so weak right now. It's so immature that these robots have a hard time really kicking and doing much. But the idea is RoboCup, the competition is saying, hey, we think in some time period, they're not sure when, that these robots are going to be able to beat a human professional soccer team. Right. And so this is the trajectory of where robots are going. And the key thing is the brains. Like no one has figured out the brains. And what Tesla is doing is they're saying, we think we figured it out, how to make AI navigate, move itself, and not just in a car, but we think it's going to work in a robot. And so if Tesla is able to make this happen, actually,
go ahead.
yeah.
Go ahead. It's just a video on my end, but it will sort itself out.
Okay.
It happens sometimes.
Okay. All right. That's okay. I'll just
by
continue
the
then.
way, why this happens because I don't want to get sued.
Oh, there you.
But I don't use my Sony for the streams. And this only happens on my second camera. I don't want to say which. I don't want to get sued.
Got it.
It's always this. It just goes out of sync. But it's a good thing we got disconnected for a second because I want to pull up on the screen what you were referring to, so it's easier for us to actually. Is this what you're referring to?
That's exactly, that's RoboCup. Yeah, perfect, awesome video here. So check out these robots. This is like state of the art, autonomous robots. So these are not remote controlled robots here. They're autonomously playing soccer right now, and so people ask me like, oh, how can Tesla compete with the best robots in the world right now? But they talk about Boston Dynamics. Boston Dynamics is not an autonomous robot. It's basically programmed, heuristically to do whatever. This is autonomous. This is the state of art, autonomous robots. And Tesla, I think, can make something in like 3 months that can beat all of these guys. It's they're way ahead in terms of their AI, and that's the whole thing. If you stick real AI into these robots, they're gonna be able to run, and actually be coordinated and do crazy stuff. And so anyways, the whole idea is if Tesla really prioritizes this, focuses it, develops it over time, they could provide, a robot that's very useful and actually people buy it. And if they do that, they can possibly corner the market because no other company is working on this like Tesla is. And if they corner the market, that helps their development because they get all this data from all their robots. And it makes it harder for the next company to get a market share position because they have to beat Tesla. They have to be better in some way than Tesla, which is going to be hard. And so if Tesla actually jumps out in a lead, gets a big market share, they eventually could be the winner takes all market or winner takes most for AI robots. If that happens, then Elon protects so-called humanity from evil kind of AI robots, because Elon can make sure that it's used in the right way. For example, he doesn't like it if it's like exactly like a human with their facial expressions. That's why it's like a black face right now, right? He wants it distinct. He doesn't want like a Terminator type of, Boston Dynamics robot. That's why it's a lean looking, kind of harmless type of looking robot. He doesn't want it to outrun a human, right? That's why he makes it where it's only going to be walking at a certain pace. And so Elon wants to try to safeguard this, where these AI robots are used for good to help humans. So if he
By the
could
way, Dave, sorry to
go ahead.
interrupt you, but you remember
Yeah.
the game Detroit Become Human?
No, I
There,
never played that.
there was a game. No, I'm not. So
Yeah.
there was a game that came out where it was a futuristic game about these robots that were like AGI robots, and they look
Yeah.
very humanoid-looking robots, and there's no distinction, like basically from human beings. So,
Yeah.
so the only thing would distinct them is like these little circles on the forehead, but other than that, like they look completely human, and so that
Yeah.
was kind of. No, I don't know why I interrupted you. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry. Apologize.
No. That's important, because like that's basically the Turing test, right? So there's this like, test in computers, like, can you tell the difference between a human versus a computer? And you can apply it to audio. If you listen to something, is this a computer talking or a human? Or writing, is this a computer that's written this article or a human? Or visually, like you can say, hey, is this video a human or a computer? And this is getting more and more blurred, because computers are getting so good at being able to write and speak and do many things. And that's why you have, like, for example, these deep fakes coming out, right? Like impersonating other people. And so you have this blur where people aren't sure, like, is this real or not? Is this something just made up or not? And this is just showing how fast, right, AI computers are progressing. But I mean, eventually the idea is, yeah, if Elon could corner the market and make sure that AI robots are used for good, then he works with regulators to make sure that the right laws are passed so that it won't be used in the future for bad either, And then by doing so, it's like Tesla has kind of safeguarded the future of humanity against possible like evil AI robots. Right. And it's this combination of using technology innovation, going to the market first, using data advantages with all the data that they'll have with robots and cars, and then basically, using, I think, regulation eventually once they get there. But it's kind of the answer to Elon's concern 5 or 6 years ago, that AI would get out of control. But this poses another interesting question, which is, will Tesla then solve AGI? And AGI is basically artificial general intelligence. Now, this is when, AI becomes smarter than a human, and then it starts to exponentially get smarter and smarter and smarter, because there's like almost no limit, right? And the idea is it's both scary and potentially interesting, because once you solve for AGI, a few things happen. One is you get this huge amount of economic value, because you can have unlimited amount of robots doing stuff for humans. Like they can make factories, they can go out, dig in the ground and do all the farming. They could basically, create their own robots. But then on the flip side, you have a lot of dangers, because these robots can get out of control if they're thinking and doing everything on their own, right? And so this is kind of the future. But this is not the future in the next 5 or 10 years per se, This is going to be playing out a little bit further down the road. But this is the future that Elon and Tesla are preparing for. And that's what you got to do. You got to start early enough where you're the groundbreaker, in these technologies, getting the market lead. And so that's what Q4 earnings was all about. Elon was saying, hey, we're going for it. This is our priority. And yeah, and so that was misunderstood by the markets, because they want to focus on the next year, the next 2 years max. They want profits and earnings and all that stuff, and they're scared that Elon and Tesla will get sidetracked from making cars, right, and just be all in this kind of like Facebook, what Facebook has gone through, where they're just talking metaverse, but they're not really showing the revenue or the profits yet, right? And so investors hate that type of, kind of distraction or that kind of talk. Yeah.
Dave, I want to again, this camera keeps acting up, but as long as you can hear me, we're fine.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I think that you touching on the point that uh, I can give you two, like, for myself. I need something simpler. I'm not as I have difficulties living in abstract concepts, so I try to
Yeah.
simplify them for myself. So, for example, in that there's that video game I told you about called Detroit Become Human. The Become Human was the robots becoming more and more inhuman. There's a scene like all the robots are humanoid, but you can see a distinction in the way they walk, the way they dress, and they have like this insignia on their on their forehead, whatever signifies that they're not real humans. And there's a scene there where a housekeeping robot is getting purchased in the store by this gentleman,
Mhm.
and he buys the robot. He brings her home, and the robot witnesses that the father is like a single dad, and he's abusive towards his daughter, and uh, and you can see that she's trying to intervene, but she can't because she's not allowed to intervene. But eventually, she breaks through her own programming, and basically intervenes and grabs the daughter, and they both run away. They get hunted. Eventually, they escape, and the plot twist. It's a 7-year-old game, so nobody should be.
Mhm.
There's no spoilers. But the plot twist is that the daughter was an AI robot herself. She was not a real girl. It was this new model where they didn't have all of this, completely human looking. But even the
Mm,
girl didn't
got
know
it.
she was a robot, and she realizes she's not real, and she has this crazy existential moment. There's another plot running around alongside that, where a bunch of robots get free and fucking nuke, eventually go to war with humans and nuke a whole city, and then like, so there a lot of these philosophical questions have been raised for, I mean, like,
Uh,
centuries, right? People talking about
yeah.
robots and AI. There's this also movie that came out a couple years ago called, I think, Mother, or I Am Mother, something like that, where this
Mhm.
AI he erases humanity because it believes that this is the best way for to ensure humanity's survival by restarting everything. So like
Mhm.
crazy shit like this have been circling around, but the only way this happens is that that's what you're saying, right? If you let greedy corporations control the narrative and control this industry, they're eventually going to lead to some catastrophic result, like a Skynet, right? We saw in Terminator. Like, it's been
Yeah.
around for like centuries, decades, right? But like the assumption is that a guy like Elon, who has proven not to be financially motivated, I mean, he doesn't invest in Tesla or SpaceX if he's financially motivated. I mean,
Yeah.
he has, so he's proven not to be financially motivated. He's probably the best guy to safeguard this, right? That's what you're saying.
Yeah, like think about like Facebook or Google or whatever,
I don't want them to
Microsoft.
have that. Yeah, not
Yeah,
first
yeah.
at
Like,
least. Yeah,
I mean, so it's so much like, the business culture is, maximize shareholder value, right? That's all that matters. Like, as long as it's going to continue growing earnings, right? That's all that matters. And, privacy, safety, security of humanity, right? And its future is not really, in their mission statement. And I think that's unique. Like Elon and Tesla, they're one of the only companies that actually have something that benefits, like, is so critical to the future of humanity as part of their mission statement, right? And so if they had to choose between making more money or, doing something better for the earth or the world, they would choose doing something better for the world. And yeah, and I think Elon has shown that over and over, um,
yeah,
like by giving the patents away for free for Tesla's, all their patents. I think he's willing to, open up the supercharger. He wants to license FSD. He's not wanting to destroy all these other, automakers, with it. Like, he doesn't have that intention. Um, but yeah, I think, yeah, definitely you need some company that is thinking on a higher level and who combines it with the actual execution to make the
yeah,
best product possible, right? So yeah,
yeah.
it's
Because if
exciting
they
because
if they if they can't if they can't make the best one, they don't win, and this whole scenario
exactly.
doesn't happen. Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, what's fascinating too is who is in second place for artificial intelligence in the physical real world. And, there really isn't like a
nope.
real second place per se. Like, you have a lot of people vying for the digital online world. Like, you have OpenAI, you have Google and Facebook and some others. But in terms of actual like physical world, navigating, interacting with the physical world, it's like there's not really any company on the level of Tesla in terms of ambition. Like, think about it. In 2017, they put a FSD computer in all of their cars, regardless of whether the person purchased FSD or not. It just came standard, this FSD computer. And this was like probably about a $3,000 investment that Tesla put into every single car, you know? But if you think about the margin, that's like, you know, that's a huge amount of margin hit per car. And no OEM would sacrifice 5 to 10% margins, you know, just to put in a computer that might help them in the future, right?
They won't put in something that's $300, bro.
Exactly.
I'm not even joking. Like,
yeah.
They won't even put something at $30 extra. They'll
exactly.
Every penny counts.
Every penny. And so Elon made this big move where he's like, $3,000 per car because we need the data and this is the future. And what other company is doing that? You know, $3,000 computer in over 1 million cars, right? Out there in the physical world, gathering the data. And most people don't understand what's really going on. They don't understand this is a huge data collection fleet that's every day, even right now, today, you know, the whole fleet is capturing all this data and feeding the engine to make it better and better. And there really is like no close second place to what Tesla's doing in the physical world. It's kind of mind-boggling. And you need that type of expertise and data if you're going to make AI robots work, because it's about, you know, navigating the physical world. So yeah, it's extremely bullish on Tesla's chances, I think, of making an AI robot. I don't know when the timeline is. I mean, it could be quite a while, but the market potential is so big, meaning it's multi-decade, you know, tens of trillions of possible dollars or more. And it's okay. It's okay if Tesla doesn't have it right away, because they've got electric vehicles that are just growing like crazy right now. They're in the beginning of this hypergrowth stage. And then they got FSD, you know, coming up in a few years. And then you've got Tesla Energy coming up as well. And so you've got massive like hypergrowth stages Tesla's going through. They don't need the robot at all. And the other thing is it doesn't even cost that much, I think, to make the robot, because they're using most of everything from their FSD program. They're using the same chips, the same hardware, the same people, the same computers, the same neural nets. So it's not like Facebook's metaverse thing where they're spending $10 billion or more, you know, a year, losing money trying to make something happen. Tesla doesn't need to do that. They just need to, you know, do what they're doing and then just keep on, you know, investing on the side with the AI robot as well. But yeah, it's fascinating. I don't know if there's a single company out there that is involved with so many multi-trillion-dollar, you know, markets, and that has kind of like this first place lead, at least right now, with perhaps the biggest market of all, which is kind of these AI robots. It's definitely a crazy story.
And then you have people comparing Tesla PE to Ford's PE. And then I see this every once in a while on YouTube, and I'm like, okay, then. So yeah. I think that if your scenario plays out, which sounds to me like, if I don't see why it can't at this point, it sounds very like the path there is just wide open right now, as long as they execute and as long as he stays committed to this idea. Yeah. If he follows through and he executes, and everybody, so nobody has even started working anything close to that. At least not anybody with the amount of resources that he has, which is billions and billions of. So by definition, I mean, it's not even going to be about who's going to be the biggest company in the world. Obviously, but they're going to be the biggest company that ever was. I mean, that's not even going to be close. There's going to be this behemoth of a global corporation that controls. Like, if you win AGI, what does it mean as far as market cap?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's like, I don't like to say that, you know, like I'm positive it's going to happen, because who knows what will happen, you know, like, And so it's all about probabilities and all that. But like back in, like, you know, in the early days of Tesla investing, like I was chatting, I was spending almost all day writing forum posts on this forum club called Tesla Motors Club.
Before they banned you. For being too good.
They didn't ban me.
Good,
they just closed one of my threads. But what happened was, I remember back in 2014 or so, I was spending like the whole year just every day, like 5 or 6 hours, like, typing these long posts. And the number one debate and argument I was having with people was I was convinced that Tesla was on the path to becoming the largest automaker in the world, that they could take out Toyota eventually if the Model 3 was going to be successful, because then they could just take on the next kind of markets.
Wait, you were thinking about the Model 3 back in the day, like you're talking like 2012, 2013?
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Elon actually
Wow.
was forecasted the Model 3. He called it the Gen 3 car. And he said it's going to be a $35,000 car. We're going to try to sell 500,000 by 2020. So he actually, back in 2012, 2013,
Wow.
he was actually telling people this. And it was part of his 2012 CEO compensation plan where, he's like, this is what I'm going to do. We're going to have 500,000, Gen 3, $35,000 cars by 2020, made every year. And so people had a hard time believing that, but I was like, I think they could do that. They just need to shrink the Model S and make it cheaper. And if they do that, I think they can be successful, take on the BMW 3 Series. But I think they actually have a very, very good chance of becoming the largest automaker because they just need to go to downstream, like cheaper cars, cheaper segments, right? And they could become the largest. But believe it or not, like probably 90% of the people are arguing me day and night saying impossible, impossible. Tesla will never, become the world's largest automaker, 0% chance, all this stuff. But these are Tesla bulls. These are people who have the stock, but it's just so outlandish that Toyota could be overtaken. Right now, it seems more realistic, but back in 2013 or so, it's like Toyota was the king. It was like the god of cars, right? And so, yeah, I mean, fast forward to 2022, I'm not saying that Tesla is going to 100% for sure take on AI robots and have, this crazy, market cap, but I see actually very, very good chances, probabilities if they continue to go on this road and they continue to execute, they make actually a really good AI robot. I think that's where it leads. They think about the Model 3. It's just gotten better and better every year. They keep on improving it. They keep on making it cheaper. It keeps on getting better. It does more things. I have a 2017 Model 3, but it drives itself almost. It's like it has FSD beta right now. It's crazy. This is 5 years later. So yeah, that's the kind of the potential I think going forward.
You remember when we had a conversation with Justin and he was saying that after he switched from a Tesla to a Honda Pilot, he felt like the software loss was insane. Like the software loss is something that he still to this day, like he feels the pain. There's nobody that comes close to them in software. And if we're talking about software advantages, that's pretty much it. That's kind of the day zero of whatever it is that's going to come out of it. So they're already like miles ahead of anybody else in that software, and they're accumulating the most amount of data, and they have a CEO that calls the shots and is committed, and they have the resources, and they have the crazy fan base that's going to facilitate that and be okay with it. Like the shit. I mean, it's what kind of company, what kind of board would allow this to play out in any other company? Can you imagine, like, not even the car company, any company? Yeah, we're building an AGI bot. Like, get the fuck, like, what? Like, no board can like, and you need this almost dictatorship, like Elon has, basically to just say, well, we're doing it. I don't think anybody has the capacity to follow through with this insane plan, and that's why I think he might win. And if he does, it's GG. Everybody else, they're pretty much screwed.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, Dave, I want to ask you a question before we go. We have
Yeah.
a few more minutes. So, as far as like you mentioned before that you play down your Tesla bet and how insanely wild this was. I don't know a lot of people who did what you did. I just want to remind people you went all in on Tesla plus margin before anybody. I didn't even know about Tesla in 2012. I think the first time I saw a Tesla Roadster was in Germany in some expo. I think this was like 2013 or 14. I was like, what the hell is this? And somebody go, well, this is an electric car, 0 to 60 in 4 seconds. I was like, it looks awesome. But then I thought, like, my understanding, well, this is a gimmick, right? This is like, I didn't even, like, I had no idea what this thing was, bro. Like, at that point, you already, like, typing, like, 4chan level fucking masterpieces about the Model 3, like, so far. So, my question is to you, like, it's like, what would you say to all of these classic old school analysts that are basically saying, well, this company is overvalued. This is a car company. They're not selling as much cars as a Toyota, or is it like what like when you engage in arguments with these people, which I'm sure like you do less today because you can't be bothered, but I'm sure
Yeah.
sometimes you have the occasional argument. Like, do you feel like when you start talking about these things, they basically say, well, this guy's an idiot, or do you feel like have you ever converted anybody from like the oh look at the PE ratio to this kind of conversation, or is it like politics where you just can't win?
Sure. Yeah, like I kind of look at it it's interesting because I actually sympathize and empathize with analysts and kind of more traditional investors a lot. Like I've read so much like, Buffett stuff and value investing and valuation type of approaches where I could probably do like 100 videos on on all these reasons why Tesla could be overvalued and it's not a good investment from that perspective. And the problem is most of investing and the culture of investing is about preservation and certainty. Like you want predictable cash flows, you want good 10% growth. You don't want to shoot for the stars because it's too risky, and that's the culture of investing. You don't want to lose your money, and every year you want it to be growing a certain amount indexed, compared to the index, right? Everything is yeah, it's so calculated in some ways. And I completely understand actually a lot of the critique or cynicism regarding Tesla or even their valuation. But I think if you look at it from a different perspective, and I think you've got to look at it more from a technological like disruption perspective, where do you think that electric cars are going to be disrupting IC cars, the whole industry, very rapidly in, let's say, in the next 10 years? Do you think EVs are basically going to take over? And do you also think full self-driving, autonomous driving is going to just take over or not? See, most analysts, they don't think that. They don't think that, autonomous driving is really here until it gets here. They're okay with missing out. They just want the numbers to be more certain, right? You can't put in FSD in your spreadsheets if it's not here. That's why it's just zero right now for everything. And so I think the question I think for people is, do you have an advantage over analysts and other investors where do you see something about the adoption, let's say, of Tesla or autonomous driving, or even back in the iPhone days, right? Did you see something about Apple that other people didn't see, right? The iOS platform, et cetera. If you have that advantage, then yeah, it's a different angle on the company, because you could say, oh, the growth I'm expecting is far greater than what other people are expecting, because this is not just a slightly better product, but it's a revolutionary better product. So that's how I kind of look at it. I go, I think this is fundamentally a crazy different type of product. Tesla is improving their efficiencies. The costs are going down massively. The value they're creating is going up a lot, especially with autonomous driving. Like that just increases the value of their product and their offerings. They're already at around 30% gross margin, for their cars. Imagine what's going to happen if this continues, right? If they continue to give more value through autonomous driving, it's just going to go up, I think. So yeah, if you calculate just like increased gross margins over the next few years, all of that goes back down to the bottom line, to operating profit and net profits. And actually it's pretty, I'm calculating, like, for example, operating profits to be like probably $30 billion by the, let's say end of next year or so at an annual rate. And then it goes up to probably 45 billion in 2024. I mean, the operating profits are going so fast because the company is so lean, and their products are in such big demand. And I would be concerned if Tesla wasn't innovating fast enough where they're not giving additional value to their cars. and then maybe the price has to come down, the margins have to come down as
Yeah.
they increase volume. But if they are giving value and this autonomous driving kind of feature that they're working on actually plays out, then I don't think there's going to be a huge issue or a problem with margins, and that's one of the reasons why I drive the FSD beta almost like several times a week in my car to make sure like it's progressing in the right track. And I've been actually pretty happy with it. I think they're improving it actually pretty fast.
Were you surprised when a lot of seasoned professional analysts, when they saw the operating margin, they fucked up and didn't see the anomaly in there and cancel like and isolated with Elon's options? Like very few analysts caught onto this.
Yeah, I think actually some did, but they're not making it a big deal because it's kind of unclear. Like, yeah, that's the thing. It's like I think a lot of analysts, they don't want to project too much in the future because it could be wrong. So they want it to be certain. And these one-time expenses, for example, it was mostly Elon's like payroll tax, right? And then you had the stock-based compensation of like 240 million. That
Yeah.
could be lower. But then you had these expedited costs, right? And supply chain issues. So yeah, I mean, they should have backed it out more. I agree. I mean, that was a big thing. But I'm not surprised. I think analysts just err on the side of caution typically. So yeah.
For me, Dave, they're so efficient. Like what I love about Tesla, I don't know how to predict the future like you do. I'm a numbers guy. And I look at this and I'm saying, these guys are so efficient. So adjusted EBITDA margin, right?
Yeah.
So adjusted EBITDA margin, we're looking at a company going from 17% to 23% on EBITDA. It's
Mhm.
it's
Yeah.
23 cents on the dollar with under a million units. Economies of scale are everything here. It's like
Exactly. Yeah.
hard. The more you build, the better your margins by definition. So a million cars is really not a lot. So a million cars, pandemic year, supply chain shortages, no chips, basically outages, stoppages, you name it. So in that year, they went from 17 to 23 cents on the dollar on EBITDA. I find
Yeah.
it insanely efficient. And I'm saying, well, this is
Yeah.
just, and this is for me, why? So now you hear my bullish theory. So why am I so
Yeah.
bullish? So this is on the most razor thin margin business you can imagine, because this is talking about a business that has 30% gross margin, which is
Yeah.
basically, by the way, 30% in hardware. It's fucking insane. It's a lot. So but when I think about FSD, and I think about 85% gross margin or 82% gross margin, where it's going to be between 80 and 85% gross margin. And we're talking about 40% EBITDA, which is SaaS tech level margins, plus in add this to Tesla's ability to be insanely efficient.
Mhm.
Like they're on the brink of an insane jump into selling software and not selling vehicles. In fact, it's going to be so much more profitable selling the software and licensing the software. They might as well give the cars away for free in a few years. I don't think they will, by the way. But I mean, like at this, it wouldn't be. It would be the if you take the pie chart, right, of
Yeah.
Tesla's revenues in 5 years, the amount of hardware in it is going to be so minimal versus the amount of licensing software and the stuff that are basically scalable up to wazoo, because there's no cost, there's no capex, there's nothing. It's like a course, like a digital course. Things you
Yeah.
don't sell, by the way, and neither do I. but
Uh,
I mean that's why I'm bullish. I don't see like I hear your vision and I'm fascinated by it. I think it's going
yeah.
to be epic if it happens, and I think it might. But I look at it like a simple man. I look at the financials, like efficient company. I don't know how the fuck they do it. And
Yeah.
imagine when they sell 5 million units, what the margin is going to look like. And they're selling FSD at 80% gross margin. I mean,
Yeah.
people are going to look back. So I tweeted a few days ago, or I made a video, said $900, it's your last chance. And people like tweeting back at me, oh, Tesla is under 900. motherfucker, it's been 2 days. I was talking like as like in the long term. I mean, I think this is pretty much the next jump for them, because I
Yeah.
see like once FSD becomes like not beta and publicly available and licensable, because I can't see Mobileye competing with them. Sorry, Mobileye has a
Yeah.
nice product. I don't see them competing with Tesla's FSD.
Yeah.
Mm, I
Yeah.
think it's going to be the next leap, the quantum leap that Tesla does, which is
Yeah.
going to surprise a lot of people, I think, and that's why I'm so bullish on the next couple of
Yeah.
years.
Yeah. Tom, can you go back to that slide that you just showed?
Yes.
So check out the thing that sticks out also for me is like, check out operating margin. Like
Oh
a
yeah.
year ago, Q4 2020, it's like 5%, right? 5.4%.
They tripled it. They tripled
And
it.
like, think about this. Like, this doesn't happen very often that you go from 5% operating margin to 15, but then it wasn't really 15. It was probably closer to 18 if you back out all the one-time
If you back
items.
out the one
So,
that exactly the stock-based comp and the
yeah,
payroll tax. Yeah.
yeah. So how do you go from 5% to
I don't know, bro.
18% operating margin in 1 year? You
In
know?
the COVID
And
year with shortages and no
yeah.
like you
And the secret of their sauce, I think, is their lean operating expenses. I mean, this last quarter was a lot because of the one-time expenses, but if you pull out 600 million or so, it's back to how it was, before. So yeah, their operating expenses just don't go up that much year over year, and that's why their operating margin is going up so much. It's yeah, it's just amazing. They've got such a good business model.
You know what
Yeah.
I also find funny, Dave,
Mhm.
is I look at the revenues, and the revenues went like right from Q4 2020, 9 billion to
Yeah.
16 billion automotive, yeah.
Yeah.
Automotive from 9 to 16 in a year. But regulatory credits stayed the same. This is the, let's say at the
Yeah. Yeah.
300 level. And you remember how like a year ago it was fashionable to talk about regulatory credits for Tesla?
Yeah. Yeah.
Nobody's saying that right now. It's like you don't hear that argument anymore. Now it's all about like they found new FUD. But I mean that
Yeah.
narrative is like
Yeah.
stick a fork in it. It's done.
Yeah. Well, the biggest narrative in the past few years was Tesla loses money off of every car they sell, which is not the case, I mean,
Yeah.
it's yeah, definitely.
Uh, we're not gonna name names, but we know who we're talking about. Obviously, don't want to offend anybody. This is like I would have if you were not on the channel. I would have done it myself. I've done it before. I don't want to drag you into this drama. I know this is not
Sure.
your
Yeah.
style.
Yeah. Yeah.
I also found it funny how you put like a disclaimer on my interview on your channel, like foul language or something like this. I don't know, like
Yeah. Yeah.
like
Yeah. Actually,
parental advisory.
yeah. Actually, some people have contacted me in the past saying that they watch my videos with their kids, so I have to be a little careful sometimes.
I just can't.
Yeah.
I can't help myself. I feel like if I don't do it,
Yeah, I hear
I,
you.
I
Yeah.
have a pain in my stomach. Like I have to when I'm passionate. But I've toned down a lot in the past year. I really people don't know how it used to be. Like this is like I'm getting better at this. Eventually, like I say, mother lover now, and people seem to like it. Let's see what happens. Hey, Dave, thank you so
Fun,
much for
fun.
coming on.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think
fun. Always.
I've never heard, although I'm sure now people will copy you. Like every good idea has a lot of others, but I've never heard anybody break out this AGI theory before. So I want to be sure that we know where it started, where it's originated. This is really fascinating. If you're right, which there's very probable reason to think you are, I mean, I don't even know how to value Tesla at this point. I don't know what the valuation is going to be. This market cap is going to look like a fucking joke. But let's see
Yeah.
what happens. I mean, there's only
Yeah.
two certainties in life. We're all going to pay taxes. We're all going to die. Everything else is a variable, right?
I hear you.
Yeah.
All right, Tom. Yeah,
Anyways,
fun chatting, and yeah.
yeah, Dave. Thank you again. If you haven't yet, which I'm shocked if you haven't, Dave's channel is going to be in the description below. Go subscribe. But I'm sure if you're watching this, you're subscribed. But you haven't by mistake. Go subscribe to Dave's channel. Dave, thank you so much. You're
Sounds good.
you're a good sport for coming on again. I know you're very busy. Thank you so much. Have a great weekend, and I'll see you soon. Probably will call you in a couple of weeks when you say something insane again on your channel, and I want you to come back.
Sounds good, Tom. All right. Good luck. We'll see
Bye,
you.
Dave.